Yo! Welcome back to One More Mana. My name's Derek, and you're probably wondering why I'm dressed so funny right now. And it's because we are starting a new series this week. It is our Deck Doctor series. And I'm really excited about this. Essentially, we're going to be looking at some of y'all's decks, and I'm going to be doctoring them up. I'm going to be kind of throwing my own little flavor on them, giving some tips here and there, and just having a good time. I love reviewing deck lists, and I'm so excited to get started on this. And yes, I will find a way to dress ridiculous every time I do so. So we're going to start with one of our patrons, Ben Johnson, has an Dragon deck that he wanted us to go ahead and take a look at. So basically what I'm going to go ahead and do for this series in general is every time I look at a deck, I'm going to talk about kind of how I feel about the deck overall. And then I'm going to go through the categories kind of like I normally do, talking about some of my favorite things that they already had in the deck. And then kind of go through and talk about cards I want to add in each category and just overall things for the deck that I see might be able to maybe help it run more efficiently or just help in certain areas. So like I said, we are looking at the Dragon today. And since this is the Deck Doctor series, we got to go ahead and just look at that overall prognosis before we get into the specifics. So overall, I'd say the deck is looking pretty good, looking pretty healthy. There's really not a ton wrong with it to start, which is awesome on your part, Ben. It seems like when you have the Dragon, there's only a couple things you really need. You need lots of ramp and lots of dragons. That's all you need to worry about. If you have ramp and dragons, the rest is going to come, but there's little things in the margins that I feel like, as always, can help the deck run as efficiently as possible. So we're going to start with the creatures. We're going to look at some of these creatures that you have in here, and again, some that I like to add. So by far, my favorite creature that's already in here, and I think in any dragon deck is a must, is Ramos Dragon Engine. Ramos is just the perfect card in this deck for so many reasons, and the number one reason is in a 5-color deck, having a colorless dragon that can ramp you into all the colors you need is insane. Now obviously you need to be able to cast other dragons to get this benefit, to get those +1 counters. But really, you're going to be able to cast a few, and the more +1 counters you get on this thing, the bigger it gets, and then be able to remove those and just get, you get Progenitus mana. To get 10 mana with, it's crazy how hard this ramps you, and it is awesome. And this is the type of card that can really just get a deck like this going. It's the type of card that you really get excited to get to cast, especially with the Dragon's Eminence ability. It's only 5 mana for this thing, and that is ridiculous. All right, so we're going to look at the charts for this deck. And from looking here, it looks like you do have a case of slightly high CMC. So we're going to want to lower that CMC a little bit to get you down to a healthier level. Now, obviously, with dragons, it's inevitable. You're going to have high CMC. It's almost impossible. Really, why would you not want high CMC? It's dragons. You want big, ridiculous creatures. The Dragon's cheating things out. You want big things. But we're going to get a few dragons that I wanted to sub in here that are a lower-ish CMC that you still get great effect out of. Now, the first one's going to be Boneyard Scourge. This is awesome. It's a 4 CMC dragon, which really, when it comes to dragons, it's about as low as you're going to get for a dragon. And it does give you just a dragon you can keep getting out of the graveyard. When other dragons are dying, this can come back out. And with the Dragon, you want to have as many dragons as possible so you can draw a bunch of cards and find the biggest, meanest dragon possible to throw out. Nicol Bolas the Ravager is another great example. It's finally coming down in price a little bit. It's a little bit more affordable, and it is another 4-drop dragon that flips into a ridiculous Planeswalker. But most importantly, like I said, 4-drop dragon. That is awesome. Again, you want things swinging with the Dragon. Now, the Dragon's a lot of mana, but by the time you cast it, you want to have hopefully 2, 3, 4 dragons out, so that way you can get all those attack triggers in order to draw a bunch of cards. Nicol Bolas is going to help that. In worst case, you flip it into an insane Planeswalker. The last one that I'm going to recommend is Territorial Hellkite. I love this as another 4 CMC dragon. It's a 6/5 flying haste. Now, yeah, it's going to attack an opponent at random, but that's not always the worst thing. I've noticed a lot. One of the people in my playgroup does play an Dragon deck, and it can be hard politically because people see you playing huge, threatening dragons, and especially if you ramp them out early, you become a target so fast. So even having that little political play of, oh, I swung at somebody at random, trying to minimize enemies is huge in a dragon deck. And this might just be able to play into that just a little bit. But again, a 6/5 for 4 mana, and it has haste. You get that dragon out there. Again, setting your board up for the biggest Dragon swing possible. But obviously with the Dragon, we're gonna have a bunch of dragons. That is not surprising. And like I said, you did a good job of really just stuffing it full of awesome dragons to begin with. Now it's these other categories, how we supplement the dragons, that are going to be really interesting. Because with a dragon deck, you only want 25, maybe 30 dragons. And you need a lot of support around it. You need the rest of the deck you need it to function healthily. You need to have a great core in order to get these big dragons going. It's not like, with certain other tribes, you might be running Merfolk and have 40 Merfolk in a deck because they're all low CMC with, all utility creatures. Not the case with dragons. If you have 40 something 6-drop dragons, it's going to be really hard to get that deck going at all. So next, we're going to look at the dragon's best friends. We're looking at the Planeswalkers. Now, one of these, every time I see this card played, I have to do a double take. And that's Sarkhan Unbroken. I absolutely love your decision to put that in here. Obviously, it's dragons, so you're going to want Sarkhans. And the fact, it's plus ability. You draw a card, and you ramp. This is ramp and card draw on one Planeswalker for 5 mana. This is ridiculous. This ramp and card draw, this is the veggies of your deck. This is what you need to be healthy, what you need to get the deck running. And this just gives you a whole lot of it. And the best thing is, you can minus it and make a dragon. It is the necessities disguised in this flashy package that still gets you dragons. Again, the fact ramp card draw on 1+ effect on a Planeswalker, every time I see that, I'm always surprised and I'm like, why don't I run this in more decks? It's insane. But with these Planeswalkers, I just said ramp and card draw is exactly what you want. And I think there's another Planeswalker, relatively new, that you can put in this category to get even more of it. That's Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. Kiora's great. Almost all your dragons are going to be 4 power or greater. I really can't even think of one off the top of my head that isn't. So you're drawing cards and you can untap a permanent, so it'll ramp you. This is amazing, and in some cases you can even untap a dragon if you need an extra blocker. On top of the fact this is only a 3 mana Planeswalker, so again with these Planeswalkers, to get both of these cases, get ramp and card draw in a dragon deck, that's what you need. We're going to move to the sorceries. I love what you did here. You put ramp, and that's what we want is ramp, ramp, ramp. Outside of the dragons themselves, we want to ramp hard. So I absolutely love your decisions here. Crux of Fate is amazing. Obviously, dragons, you need that dragon-specific board wipe, so clearly that had to be in there. But the one thing that I did want to tweak is kind of just a different way to ramp. And I'm going to go over that in a second. And I actually had switched one ramp spell for another. So before, you did have Kodama's Reach in there. And I love Kodama's Reach. I put it in a ton of decks. But in a 5-color deck, yeah, Kodama's Reach is going to get you basically a couple of basic lands, and it's going to get you 2 of those 5 colors. But if you go ahead and run a Sky Shroud Claim, this is going to open the door for you to get any colors you need. Essentially, you get those 2 forests, and I see you're running Shocklands. So this essentially can go and fetch you that extra color. And because they do have to be forests as well, this essentially gets you access to 3 colors, but they can come in untapped. And 3 colors is technically more than 2, so it does get you a little bit more access across the color pie. So especially in decks where you can run Shocklands and have all those colors, I always recommend running either Nature's Lore or Farseek, which I see you do have, or Sky Shroud Claim, to give you access to more colors when you need it. Your artifacts are awesome. You went hard on artifact ramp, which in a deck like this, I actually think is even better than sorcery ramp in a lot of cases, because yeah, you have access to green, so you love sorcery ramp. But what happens if you don't get green early on? Artifact ramp is great because it doesn't matter what colors you have access to. You're still able to ramp and get everything set up. So you have tons of artifact ramp, and it's exactly how you want to build a 5-color deck like that. The fact that a lot of this artifact ramp gives you access to colors in addition is crazy. But there were a couple that I felt like you would want to consider adding. The first one is Dragon's Horde. Again, I feel like this is just the theme right now, is talking about cards that give you ramp and card draw in this dragon deck. It's basically just to supplement your dragons, and it does exactly that. Whenever you play a dragon, it gets a gold counter. You can remove a gold counter to draw a card, or you can tap it to add a mana of any color. This is everything you want. It's essentially a Darksteel ingot that doubles to let you draw a card. Like, what? It's just like a commander sphere, except that card draw can be repeatable because you keep playing dragons. This is a great way to supplement. You already have lots of amazing artifact ramp, but it never hurts to throw a little bit more on it. Again, that doubling is card draw. I understand your commander has a lot of card draw on it, so that does change the deck stats a little bit where you don't need to lean as heavily in, but if this is already ramping you, it doesn't hurt to have the card draw as well. And speaking of ramp, there's another card, and it's a little on the expensive side, so I understand if you can't include it. But if you can, Urza's Incubator is amazing in any dragon deck. This is a dream in any dragon deck. Dragons are so expensive, and on top of the colored mana you need, there's almost always at least a few colorless on top of it. And to make them all 2 colorless cheaper, on top of the Commander's Eminence ability, this is ridiculous. You're taking that Eminence ability and combining it with this, and the dragons just cost close to nothing. You're paying sometimes 2-3 mana for these dragons, and then that is the point at which things get silly, because if you're just playing out all your dragons and then swinging with everything with your dragon, all of a sudden you're drawing all those cards. You put a permanent into play, but not only do you get to put that permanent into play, you got all enough mana to just keep casting more dragons because they get so cheap. With the enchantments, I love Sarkhan's Unsealing. It is a perfect card to any dragon deck. This card does work. I've seen it in play a few times, and it's one of those, if you don't remove it, it's just going to control the board, and when you have as many threats as you have in this deck, yeah, it's going to be a problem. The other one that I love that you put in here is Carpet of Flowers. Carpet of Flowers is such a cool card. Now, it's a high variance card, but those are some of my favorites. I love when you kind of don't know how great it's going to be. Really, to me, a lot of the time, one of the most annoying things in Magic to me is just those mono blue decks that just want to ruin the fun for everybody else. And Carpet of Flowers helps you to benefit off that. If I'm not playing against any blue decks and Carpet of Flowers isn't working, I'm still in a pretty good mood because I don't have to worry about my stuff getting countered. So you know what? It's a pretty good consolation prize. So that's Carpet of Flowers. I love it in here. The one card I would look to add in this slot is Rhythm of the Wild. Rhythm of the Wild is crazy because, one, you're investing a lot of mana in these dragons. You don't want them to be countered. This is not going to let them be countered. That is amazing by itself. But the fact that it has the potential to either buff a dragon or give it haste, you want your dragons to have haste because you want to be swinging with as many dragons as possible. You get both of those on one card for 3 mana. It's insane. You definitely want to slot that in here. Now, if you take a look at the instance now, you're going to see basically, like I said, the deck in general, it looked like it was in stable condition. It was very healthy. Like I said, there's a little bit of, the CMC was a little bit high. We wanted to lower that a little bit. I already talked about kind of really all the awesome things that you already have going in the deck that I wanted to just change up here and there. But the one area that I thought that we could do the most revamping was with the removal, and I felt like the deck suffered from a lack of diversity of removal. And what we need to go ahead and do is get you a well-balanced dose of diversified removal. And what I mean when I say that is you ran removal in the deck. There was some single target removal. But in a deck like this, you're focused on ramp and getting out threats. You're not going to run as much single target removal really as you would in a lot of other decks. So you need to make sure that the removal you do run is very wide range. You need to be able to deal with just about anything with it. There were cards in there before that said destroy target artifact or enchantment or destroy this. But you want stuff that lets you do whatever. And when you look at Assassin's Trophy, Chaos Warp, and Beast Within, they let you deal with target permanent. And that is exactly what you want. If you're going to be lower on removal, which in a deck like this, I almost agree with. You want to be the threat. You're throwing dragons out. You don't want to be answering stuff as much as you want to be being that threat. But you need to make sure that removal that you do have is as diverse as possible. And these allow you to answer anything. You don't have to worry about drawing the right removal spell. If you just draw any of these, it can deal with anything on the board. Looking at your mana base, I actually really like the way you put the mana base together, because especially at this point, I mean, they're already going up now. But Shocklands were about as cheap as they ever were going to get when they just got reprinted, so you can put tons of Shocklands in. I love the Tri-Lands. Tri-Lands are amazing. They're budget, and they get you access to the colors you need. Nothing wrong with the mana base at all. If you can get your hand on a couple of the cheaper, recently reprinted, I guess the Cons fetches are the most recently reprinted ones. There's a few that are in the, there's a couple I think in the 15 to 20 range. Just throwing those in can make a world of difference to get you access to the shocks easier. But I think this mana base is going to work just fine. And now that we've gone over all the categories for this Deck Doctor series, what I want to do is go over really the 3 all-stars. If you had to pick 3 cards to add to your deck. So in this category, I'm going to prescribe you 3 cards to go ahead, and if you had to add only 3 to the deck, these are the 3 you're going to add. Write you that prescription, go pick up these cards and get this deck running even better. And the first one is going to be Dragon's Arch. Now, Dragon's Arch is, you had a card similar to this before, and I just think this might be a more efficient way to do it. It's a 5-drop artifact, so it's a little expensive, but you pay 2 and you tap it, you put a multicolored creature from your hand into play. 2 mana. So many of your dragons are high CMC, well more than 2, and so many of them are multicolored, and this is just a great way to cheat things into play. Not to mention, this gives you the ability to throw out dragons at instant speed. You can give stuff virtual haste by throwing it out on the end step before your turn. This is just an all-around cool card. Not to mention the flavor win, because it's called Dragon's Art. So I mean, that never hurts either. Number 2, and this is, I've already talked about it, but I couldn't put a top 3 list without this being on it, and it's Rhythm of the Wild. Rhythm of the Wild definitely has to be in this deck, and the best thing about it is it's a fairly cheap card. If you can give things haste, you can make things uncounterable, or you can buff your dragons. It's everything you can imagine that you could ever want in this dragon deck, and right away, you get access to giving your Dragon haste, at the very least. On top of the fact that it can't be countered. Nothing's worse than pumping all of your mana and all your resources into a card just to see the blue player sitting over there telling you no. Well, Rhythm of the Wild makes sure that isn't the case. You can cast things, feel safe, and get those dragons out. And then the number 1 card that I would recommend that go in this deck, and I skipped this before because I wanted to talk about it now, it is Morophon the Boundless. Now, Morophon is, I guess, technically a dragon. It's not just, it's a changeling, so not a dragon per se, but it is a dragon. It's everything you could ever want. Dragons, more than almost any other creature type, have so many colored mana symbols in their casting cost. And your commander has the eminence ability of taking away a colorless mana already. If you combine that with Morophon and take away all those colored mana symbols, you can be throwing out insane threats for almost free. This, combined with your commander, Nicol Bolas the Ravager, is free. Scion of the Ur-Dragon, free. And your commander, 4 colorless, obviously with attacks. This is insane. This is so good. And really the most important thing here is you're going to be able to get your commander out for very, very cheap. Which, in a deck like this, it runs fine without the commander. You want that commander out there to get maximum effect. And Morophon takes care of that. Not to mention the Anthem effect. It's going to let you consistently get your commander out. And one of the coolest things about Morophon is, again, it's colorless mana to cast it. The fact that it reduces colored mana, it's a weird mana fixing card. Because let's say you don't get the right colors of mana, you have a whole bunch of just one color or a whole bunch of colorless ramp or something happens like that. If you get Morophon out, you're reducing all the colored mana in all your dragons, and it becomes infinitely easier to cast everything, so you don't have to worry about the mana fixing as much, because all that colored mana is gone. That is ridiculous. It is so powerful and such a crazy effect, and more than almost any other creature type, really, dragons benefit from this. And Morophon is just an awesome, awesome card, and I realize it is one, and maybe some people are hesitant, it's a changeling, not technically a dragon, but in this deck, I feel like no card better supplements what the Ur-Dragon's able to do than Morophon. So that's going to do it for our first deck doctor. If you go and check out the description, we will post the before and after deck list so you can check out any changes I made. Check out the deck. It looks like an absolutely awesome deck. I've had experience playing against some Ur-Dragon decks. They always seem really fun. Definitely tell me what you guys think. I am so excited to get to doctor more decks. This is so much fun. I love tweaking deck lists, and I mean, it's awesome. And seeing the way that some of y'all brew, it just makes it even more fun. So I cannot wait to get to more. Don't worry, got plenty of deck techs still coming. I got so many deck lists all put together that I need to go ahead and do deck techs for some awesome stuff coming. So I really hope you guys are excited. And I don't know if I mentioned earlier, Ben is one of our patrons, and this is something we are going to go ahead and do for our patrons. Any of our patrons out there, if you want a deck tech, if you want a deck doctored, if you want any advice, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And some of you already have, believe me, we are in the works getting all that together. We're going to make sure we get to all your guys' stuff, and definitely reach out, let us know. But as always, thank you to all the patrons. This is one of many ways that we wish to just, show you thanks, show our appreciation going into the future. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming soon. But until then, I will see you guys next time.